Thinking too much? Have you ever wanted to be able to shut down your brain using magnetic fields? Or have you ever been frustrated while driving to work? Wish that you could just fly over the traffic? Have you ever done something so embarrassing that you wished you could make a wormhole and jump into it? You must wish you were Magneto. For those who are unaware, Magneto is a supervillain in the Marvel Universe who usually is the antagonist to the X-Men. His powers allow him to manipulate electromagnetic fields, resulting in his ability to control brainwaves and effectively shut down someone's brain, manipulate Earth's gravity, giving him the power to fly, and in some comics, create electromagnetic wormholes. Born in the 1930s, Magneto's powers awoke when he was separated from his parents during the Holocaust. For a while, he was friends with Professor X, but due to his desire to eradicate all humans, they lost touch. So, he moved to a remote island off the coast of Africa that doesn't exist in our reality and created a group of mutant humans that would help him in killing all normal humans. Anyways, throughout the comics, Magneto proves to be an interesting character with even more interesting powers. But are they really used to their max potential? Now, Connor will be talking about the biology that affects Magneto's powers.
Everybody knows about Magneto's trademark power, the manipulation of magnetic fields, but he also has some you may not be aware of. One unique power of his is the ability to manipulate blood iron content. Most of our body's iron is found in our red blood cells called hemoglobin and in our muscle cells called myoglobin. He can use the iron stored in our blood to reverse blood flow, leaving his enemies immobilized from pain. With this in mind, we can assume Magneto's ability to manipulate blood iron content can be used for good too. Magneto could prove to be useful in the medical field by using his power to help people that suffer from iron deficiency with a precise amount of iron to bring them back to health. But the question is, could he do this in real life? Surprisingly, yes. A YouTuber that by the name of Brainiac75 managed to manipulate the location of a cup of pig's blood with a giant 200 by 50 millimeter magnet. This means Magneto could indeed manipulate a patient's blood using his magnetic powers. Additionally, Magneto is an exceptionally talented scientist. He has demonstrated the ability to manipulate genetics, possessing the ability to mutate humans, giving them superpowers. With this comes the ability to clone adult human beings and manipulate the genetics of said clone. Again, we can assume Magneto would be able to replicate these powers with animals. Magneto's genetic manipulation and cloning ability can prove useful in a few ways. First, animal farming would be sustainable as Magneto could regulate the populations of farm species. Furthermore, the product would be better, as he could mutate a perfect specimen and clone it to produce a quality product. Lastly, a sick patient could be cloned to be studied and scientists could research cures for diseases like AIDS and cancer. This is also proven to be possible in real life to some extent. Animals such as mice, frogs, cats, sheep, pigs, and cows have all been cloned previously. Keeping this in mind, it would be possible to clone humans too. The only reason cloning isn't done more frequently is because it is considered unethical, which is an important factor to consider when doing scientific research. So although it is possible, Magneto would probably not be allowed to do this as much as he might like to. Now that we have gone over the biology of Magneto, we will go into chemistry.
The chemistry of Magneto is not as complicated as it seems. Magneto's powers are very self-explanatory. He has three major powers. He is able to levitate himself and others, he is able to control things using his mind, and he has magnetic fingertips. All of these powers seem highly fictional, but they are possible to obtain and have been done in the past by scientists. Levitism is based on diamagnetism. Diamagnetism is when an object generates a magnetic field in opposition to an outside magnetic force, which then causes a repulsive effect. The created force can be so strong that the object may actually levitate. An example of a diamagnetic molecule is a water molecule. Magneto also has the ability to use his mind to control other objects, beings, etc. He uses mind control through magnetic field manipulation. TMS, also known as transcranial magnetic stimulation, is a non-invasive way for scientists to stimulate or shut down activity in some parts of the brain. TMS induces electromagnetic fields in the brain neurons by using rapid and random electromagnetic fields. All over Magneto's body, he is magnetic. This is considered an individual power, and all you need to do is add a rare earth magnet encased in silicone rubber coating to either your fingertips or anywhere else. This is a very dangerous procedure and is not recommended. Next, we're going to go into exercise science. While Magneto himself has some crazy powers, the actor behind the live-action version of Magneto, Michael Fassbender, did a lot of physical work to prepare for his role. Nutritionally, he followed what is known as the paleo diet, in which you eat food aligned with what it is presumed human hunter-gatherers ate thousands of years ago. According to researchers, they ate a lot of whole foods, which includes things such as fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, eggs, healthy fats, and in Fassbender's case, limited dairy. The vast majority of foods in these categories have what is known as a low glycemic index. Glycemic index, or GI, is a ranking system for carbohydrates based on their immediate effect on blood glucose levels. Low GI indicates that glucose is released slowly into the blood and prevents what is commonly referred to as a sugar crash. These low GI foods in the paleo diet are beneficial because they give Fassbender sustained energy throughout workouts. As far as the workout regimen itself, he trains 6 days a week, allowing 1 day for muscle recovery and rest. He incorporated cardio in the forms of jogging and boxing. He employs interval training or having a structured period of work followed by structured rest for his strength workouts, in which he used a half unit of rest per unit of work. However, perhaps the most important part of his grueling workouts is the time he dedicates to warm up and cool down. A satisfactory warm up will first raise your heart rate to increase body temperature and the speed of oxygen delivery. He achieves this step through an 800-meter jog. Next, Fassbender goes through a series of dynamic stretching routines, which leads to greater muscle elasticity and lowers the probability of injury. The third step, doing a sport-specific exercise, does not apply specifically to Fassbender. However, he does incorporate boxing before going into the general strength portion of his workouts. Post-workout, he cools down with some more stretching. Now that you know a little bit about the exercise science behind Michael Fassbender's impeccable physique as Magneto, let's welcome Quinn and Andrew with physics.
Magneto's trademark powers are that he can create magnetic fields around himself, either attracting or repelling metallic objects, and levitation or flight. He is able to freeze bullets in mid-air, levitate himself, bend steel, and much more. The background of how magnetism works is solely behind moving charges around an element. Magnetic fields store energy, while electrons and atoms are also present. When the charges and forces leave the magnet, they enter through its south pole and enter into the north pole, in this drawing. With moving electrons being the fundamental source of magnetism, every atom produces magnetism. The reason why, in the Marvel comics, Magneto can only manipulate metals is because the magnetic fields from the atoms of nonmetals cancel each other out in all directions, making them non-magnetic. Since the metal atoms produce magnetism, he can theoretically move the atoms themselves, thus moving the magnetic field and all of the metal being acted on it with it. In a real-life scenario, Magneto definitely cannot manipulate the magnetic fields produced by attractive metals, conclusively moving the metal with his mind. The main reason for this is because magnets are only attracted to certain metals. The main metal elements that are part of most magnets are nickel, iron, and cobalt, due to their ferromagnetic properties of maintaining a magnet-like state. Electricity and magnetism are directly related, in the sense that changes in electric fields create magnetic fields, and changes in magnetic fields create electric fields. Electromagnets are the product of electric currents when they produce a magnetic field. In the next section, we're talking about Teslas, and an electromagnet can typically be referred to as a Tesla.
In most cases, magnetism is activating an electromagnet by passing the current through a coil around a magnetic material. In 2018, scientists were able to create the strongest sustainable magnetic field recorded. This was created by using electromagnetic flux compression to create a magnetic field that could be sustained for 1,200 teslas and powerful enough to rip an iron door off of its hinges. To compare this to a more recognizable force, let's take the refrigerator magnet. An average refrigerator magnet has magnetism of 100 Gauss or 0.01 teslas. 1,200 of these small magnets have the combined strength of the force required to pull a door off its hinges. An average human has a magnetism of 0.1 microteslas. To put this in a scale, 1 Tesla is 1 million microteslas, so the force required to move the door would be 12 billion times stronger than the magnetism that an average human holds. This is not even a fair comparison to when he destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge, which easily required much more power than the strongest electromagnetic field that humans can create in perfect light conditions, much less generated from a single person. Sadly, Magneto's magnetism feat are no more than fancy CGI and not an ability that a human can wield, even a super mutant.
Now that we've talked about the actualities of Magneto's powers, let's get into some of the finer points of magnetism and computer science. In the movie, there's a largely untapped theoretical power Magneto would have. His powers are based on magnetism, and so are computers. To put it simply, computers are made out of metal, magnets, and electricity, meaning they're perfect targets for Magneto to manipulate. As a start, I'll give examples of when Magneto could use his powers on computers without needing to know how they work, and then I'll get a bit more complicated. So obviously, one way Magneto could destroy a computer is by crushing it, as most have a metal case, and he would use that to crush it. One complicated example is when you combine magnets and a hard drive. Computer hard drives are made of 4 components, including a platter, spindle, reading and writing arm, and an actuator. The platter specifically is what stores the data in a computer. These platters are magnetic, and if Magneto was able to create a magnetic field strong enough, he could remotely write the data stored from the hard drive. Instant computer failure at its finest.
Now into the CGI of Magneto. There are many CGI effects that were used to create the breathtaking scenes of Magneto's powers. One method was that in the scenes where his powers were displayed, they had objects that were made to look metallic, so his powers seemed to have a more realistic effect. When Magneto used his powers and objects started to rise, lenticular clouds would be added to the scene. The rise of metallic elements was tied to an extreme weather event. So, as an effect, lenticular clouds would appear in the area of debris. Lenticular clouds appear in areas where the atmosphere is experiencing instability, and this helps build the image of the power that Magneto wielded. The actual movement of the objects was reliant up to 50 million polygons an object. The movement on the objects was based on the effect of iron filings sprinkled over a magnet. The overall creation of Magneto's powers is extremely impressive, as many of the objects were simulated to create the effect of being magnetically brought towards or away from Magneto.